Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Friday night live stream for Week 15 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, answering any and all fantasy related questions. I already do see many questions in the live chat. So again, if you guys are going to send in a live chat question, please be sure to include your scoring format. Standard, half PPR, full PPR. The more context you provide within that question, the easier it'll be. Again, as this week has progressed, we've gotten more and more indicators as to who will be playing and who will be out due to injury. Earlier today, obviously, there was a little bit more exciting information about the possibility of Breece Hall playing based on the press conference that the New York Jets head coach had held. It looks like Breece Hall is trending towards playing. There's a reason why we have him as today's live stream thumbnail, because there's a possibility in which he should be, suiting up and playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is a fantastic matchup for the running back position. I'll give you guys a little bit of insight as to where I'll have him ranked going into this upcoming Sunday, assuming he ends up suiting up and playing, and there isn't any sort of setback in the next couple days. But outside of that, earlier today, about 2 hours ago, did end up posting my Week 15 hidden gems. Again, we're in Week 15. Let's not get cute with it. Let's start our studs. I still do believe someone like I almost said Jahan Dotson. I don't even know why the name Jahan Dotson came to my brain. that is interesting, to say the very least. But anyway, what I meant to say is that someone like Josh Downs, maybe it's the J and the D that kind of got me messed up. But either way, someone like Josh Downs should be a fantastic play this week. Again, there's a couple other players in the extension of the Hidden Gems universe that I've included there. So if you guys are interested, check that video out. Outside of that, let's get into answering questions straight away, immediately. I did see that Dylan earlier on in the live stream, one of the first questions of the day was sent via live stream chat, says Pollard or Jonnu Smith in a full PPR. Pollard didn't practice Thursday or Friday. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. He was limited on Friday. The expectation is that he is going to be playing. As to whether I would play him or Jonnu Smith in a full PPR, I think the smart decision would be I think playing Pollard is the correct decision based on what the weather is going to look like in that game. It'll probably promote more of a running heavy approach. But again, if I'm going to do a little bit more digging regarding his injury, if there's any sort of potential for re-aggravation, I'll just play Jonnu Smith and I won't even doubt it. Because like on Thursday's rankings, prior to knowing that he practiced today, I had Jonnu Smith ahead of him. So obviously him practicing today, this does give him a little bit more momentum in terms of the potential of his fantasy upside this week, but it certainly does hurt in the long term, considering, again, there is still a lingering issue there. Someone had also asked Breece Hall or Dowdle. I'd still play Dowdle this week against Carolina. Dowdle's been incredible over the course of the last 3 weeks in terms of his opportunity share and efficiency, so I'm going to continue to double down on that. Bearcat had asked the question while the intro music was rolling. He said, anyone have Charbonnet in their lineup? Everyone should be starting Charbonnet. It does not matter who else you have on roster. Actually, it does, but just for all intents purposes, guys, for the last 2 weeks, we've been all in on Charbonnet. We'll continue to be all in on Charbonnet in the absence of Kenneth Walker, which is most likely going to be the case this week, considering he's already been given the doubtful designation. We've talked about it. Once given the doubtful designation, there's about a 99.5% chance that fantasy prospect will not be available come Sunday. So expect that to be the only backfield filled with Charbonnet. Sure, there's going to be some efforts of other running backs, but Charbonnet should be having an incredible performance once again this week as a top 8 running back option. Okay, there were a couple of super chats sent in. Just want to address them first and foremost. John S. begins by saying, I have Saquon, Charbonnet, and Cook in my lineup right now. Says, would you sit Cook for Judy with Njoku and Tillman likely out and Noah Gray, Juwan Johnson, or Stone Smart in a non-PPR? Thank you. Okay. So as we progress towards Sunday, the weather in that Cleveland game is not expected to be pretty. Based on what the most recent weather report has kind of played it out as, it's a 91% chance of rain. It's a guaranteed 15 mile per hour winds. So if we're going to be in a situation where it's a heavy rain game, I might not be interested in any receiving options for the Cleveland Browns. If by the time we get to Sunday morning, if the weather looks solid, it's not as, destructive as it currently advertised, then sure, we can make that swap and play him in the absence of Njoku and Tillman. But unless, if the weather's going to be a disaster, I'm not too interested in trying to rely upon that. So I'd lean towards Cook in that circumstance, John. And then as for your next question, Noah Gray, Juwan Johnson, or Stone Smart, between the three of them, I'd probably go Johnson 1, Smart 2, Noah Gray 3 in a non-PPR. Just looking for touchdown upside purely between the three of them. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next question from James P., who says, I need one this week. Dallas, Arizona, or the Chargers defense? between the three of them, I would rank them in the following order. I'd go Arizona 1. Let's go Arizona 1, Dallas 2, Chargers 3. Thank you. Denon sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, should I pick up Romeo Doubs? If so, who should I drop? Mooney, Keenan Allen, Thielen, Tyjae Spears, Isaiah Davis, Jalen Warren. Yeah, of those available, if you were going to drop a running back, or you have to drop a running back in this circumstance. If you were going to drop any of these players, it would be between Tyjae Spears and Isaiah Davis. I would be dropping Isaiah Davis considering the expectation of Breece Hall returning this week into the lineup. So yes, that's the swap that I would make. And I'm primarily making that move, Denon, to just kind of prevent other teams in your league from picking him up and utilizing it against you in the future, quite frankly. It's not something that you'd be picking up to play, but you'd be picking up to kind of prevent others from potentially getting the momentum of him after this upcoming weekend's performance and the upcoming shootouts that should be taking place in these upcoming Green Bay games. Thank you. Nels Santiago sends in a question. Nels, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Says, hey, Kirk, in a 12-team PPR, I need a quarterback for my playoff run. Love, Stroud, Winston, Cousins, Geno, and Russell Wilson. Okay. So I don't love the idea of playing Russell Wilson, especially considering George Pickens already deemed out this week. Most likely he's not going to play the next couple weeks as well. So Russell Wilson, not too interested there. Kirk Cousins, can't rely upon him, quite frankly, even though he has fantastic matchups ahead. He just has not been, fantasy reliant. Now, if he's going to somehow build momentum after this upcoming Monday night performance against the Las Vegas Raiders, perhaps we could continue to lean in his direction against the New York Giants the week after. But for as of right now, rest of season, I'd lean in the direction of Jordan Love. That would be the primary number one option. Winston, again, has some okay scheduled games, a lot of injuries to his receiving options, which does not help, and weather concerns that definitely is not great. So I'd probably rank them like Love number 1, Geno 2, Stroud 3, Cousins 4, Winston 5, Russell 6, something of that exchange based on the current situations of these offenses. Thank you, Nels. Appreciate it. Chris Moraga sends in a question. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Says, in a PPR flex, Tracy, Hawkinson, McCormick. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm pretty sure I've answered this like the last 2 days that you sent it in. I'm still very comfortable rolling with Hawkinson there. I think if you wanted to play it safe, the best plan of action in a PPR sense would probably just to play Tracy and just hope that he catches 6-7 passes out of the backfield. But I'm going to go with Hawkinson there if it's my team. As for your next question, PPR, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. We have Ladd McConkey, Myers, Flowers, Rachaad White, Stevenson. Okay, so Rachaad White and Bucky Irving still up in the air. That is a to be determined situation. By the time we get to Sunday morning, I'll have, I guess, a better plan of action regarding how I want to approach it within the rankings. Because again, we still don't know the absolute status of Bucky Irving. There's a possibility he could play. There's a possibility in which he plays, but is at a limited capacity. That could definitely impact how we want to approach the start of Rachaad White. But within this current position, Ladd McConkey would be your wide receiver 1 in a full PPR. And I would most likely in a full PPR play Myers next to him in the event in which Bucky Irving was inactive, or I was given the indication that Rachaad White would have a expansive role, like 75% of the touches going in his direction. It would be Ladd and Rachaad White. But in the event in which it's going to be like a 50-50 split once again, I'll just go with Ladd and Myers there. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. As for your final question, defense, Baltimore or Denver? I'd rather play Baltimore this week. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from BT Youngin, who says, pick 3, Sharps, Neighbors, AJ, London, Thielen. Cool. Of these available, my highest ranked players are Charbonnet, AJ Brown, and Drake London. Those are the 3 that I would play with in my lineup this week. I could justify playing Thielen over London. I just couldn't do it. I could justify it though. I mean, if you felt so, if you felt very confident in the matter and you would be willing to take the risk, I don't mind it. But personally, if it was my lineup, I'm going Charbonnet, AJ Brown, London this week. Thank you. Anthony sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, start 2 between BTJ, Pittman, Shakir, Thielen, and Mooney. Okay, so we've got a lot of options here. A lot of great options, to be totally honest. Okay, so with Evan Ingram going down, that's Evan Ingram, that is Christian Kirk, and that is now Gabe Davis, who are all out of this Jacksonville Jaguars passing attack, leaving BTJ and Parker Washington as the only legitimate threats. Now, again, Brenton Strange, the backup tight end, will supplement pretty well. I think he's going to find himself a pretty good workload share going forward, but obviously he's not going to be very much so a fantasy relevant option. Of the available players you have here, though, if I'm starting 2 of them, I'm going BTJ and Shakir. Actually, it's a full PPR. I could go about it differently. BTJ, maybe I just go with Thielen and play it safe. Yeah, you know what? In a full PPR, to play it safe, just in case BTJ gets double or triple teamed because there's no other threats on the field, maybe just go Shakir Thielen. I think that's the way that I'd go about it as of this week. Thank you. Savage Era sends in a question, says, questions in the chat. Happy holidays. Thank you, Savage. Appreciate it. All right, let's see what you have here, my brother. So, Savage says the following. Says, sup, Andrew. In a full PPR, start or sit 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 flex. Of the following, we have McConkey, Metcalf, McLaurin, Dobbs, Montgomery, Bijan, Charbonnet, Laporta, Ertz. Okay, cool. So your tight end, clear and away, I would prefer to play Zach Ertz in that circumstance. Again, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, those are the primary number 1 and 2 options within this passing attack. Noah Brown, who is typically the wide receiver 2, is dealing with a kidney injury, not expected to play. That will lead to more potential opportunity share within these specific pieces, McLaurin and Ertz. Now, in regards to speaking of McLaurin, you do have him on roster, and I would suggest also playing him this week alongside of Lad McConkey as your second wide receiver. So those will be your 2 wide receivers, McLaurin and McConkey. And then as for starting your quote-unquote flex, I mean, maybe there's 2 running backs that can start on this team as well. You didn't end up mentioning that. If that's the case, obviously Bijan Robinson and Charbonnet will be your RB1 and 2, and your flex would end up being Montgomery. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from James P. Follow-up. Says, Kraft or Ferguson? I'd much rather play Tucker Kraft. Again, the usage that Kraft has seen as of late has been solidified. Again, we still have another consecutive week here in which Luke Musgrave will be out. He will most likely return from the injured reserve next week. And in that scenario, we may see less utilization of Kraft in terms of that opportunity share. But ultimately, Kraft, the better option, a better matchup. I mean, actually, technically not a better matchup, but I can rely upon his workload in comparison to Ferguson. Otherwise, Ferguson does have a fantastic matchup against Carolina. I just don't know if they're going to be able to take advantage of it, considering last week they really did blunder that Cincinnati Bengals, contest. Thank you. MC Bowling sends in a question, says, in a 3-flex league, I've got Breece, Calvin, Romeo. In my bench options are Gus, Wanda Robinson, Isaiah Davis, if Breece, no, and Spears, if no Pollard. Got it. Okay, so you've got some alternative options there. So as it currently stands, yes, Breece would play. In the event in which he did not play, then you would supplement Isaiah Davis in for him. You'd be good to go. Calvin Ridley's perfectly fine there. Romeo Dobbs is fine there. I wouldn't change anything within your lineup. Again, if injuries were to occur, theoretically speaking, no Pollard, no Breece Hall, you would throw in Tyjae Spears along with Isaiah Davis to play over the bunch, and then you'd play them alongside of Calvin Ridley as your 3 options within the flex. Thank you, MC Bowling. Appreciate it. All right, we've caught up with that. I think we're good there. Again, for those of you who are joining us on this wonderful Friday night, I hope you guys are doing well. Again, if you guys are going to type in a question or send it in via Super Chat in order to claim priority, regardless of which way you do send in your question, make sure you include your scoring format, half PPR, standard, full PPR. The more context you provide within your situation, the easier it'll be for me to answer. And of course, other members of this community to also answer you in the chat. Thank you. Okay. Ando in the chat sends in a question, says full PPR. Sorry, not full PPR. That's a different question. Ando said week 16, Cardinals or Packers? Week 16, I'd rather play the Packers. Yes, they will be playing against most likely Jake Haener and the New Orleans Saints. So absolutely playing the Packers in week 16. Week 17, Eagles or Colts. I would probably, depending on how the Colts defense plays the next couple weeks, it'll give me a little bit more of an indicator. For right now, I would lean towards the Eagles. If we can get to week 17 and the Colts are relatively promising in terms of their recent performances as a defense, and I can rely upon them a little bit more, then I'd be willing to play them against the Giants in week 17. But for right now, I just picked the Packers and Eagles just to be safe. Thank you. Anthony in the chat says, Andrew, I meant start 3 on my question. Okay, Anthony, let me go back up here really quickly. Start 3. Okay, so if we're picking 3 of these potential options, it would be Shakir, Thielen, and BTJ. So yeah, instead of me holding out BTJ in that circumstance, now going forward, he would actually be in the mix. So Shakir, Thielen, BTJ in that order. The next option theoretically will be Mooney 4th and Pittman 5th. But yeah, those won't matter considering the other 3 options are the ones that you're going with. All right, Havin P sends in a question. It says, sit 1, Ridley, Flowers, Garrett Wilson, BTJ. If I had to sit 1, I'd probably sit Ridley there. I'd rather play Flowers, Garrett Wilson, and BTJ. Thank you. Dan Tannenbaum sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. Tyrone Tracy is my RB2, but has a tough matchup this week versus the Ravens. Should I start Sincere McCormick off of the bench instead? I would only play Sincere McCormick over Tyrone Tracy if, in fact, it's a half PPR or standard league. In a full PPR, I would rather play Tyrone Tracy this week. Thank you. Ethan Gamaros in the chat says, Kyler Murray or Goff this week, 4-point per passing touchdown. I'd rather play Goff, to be honest. I think it's going to be a higher scoring event between the two. Indoor stadium, no weather concerns. Kyler Murray, the only thing that potentially can scare me off from playing him is the potential which they grant themselves an early lead considering their offensive efforts, specifically running the ball against the New England Patriots. And with an early lead, if there's any sort of mistakes made by the Patriots offense, this very, very, very easily could turn into a game in which Kyler is not implicated for much because they're just running the ball for the entirety of the second half because they could just freely do so against a run-stop defense like New England that's incapable of stopping them in that category. So for right now, there's a lot of concern with that. Lack of rushing upside for Kyler, again, continues to persist. So those are the things that kind of lead me away from him. Sergio in the chat says, would you play Kelsey or Sincere if you have Kupp with 0 points? I'd still rather play Kelsey there and hope for him to find the end zone. Again, it's very much so dependent on weather, though. If we get to that Sunday game and the weather looks like a complete disaster of a downpour, I'd probably just lean away from Kelsey and just play McCormick on Monday against the Falcons. Nick AM in the chat says full PPR, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. Cool. Says I have AJ Brown, BTJ, Shakir, Waddle, Achane, and Montgomery Charbonnet. Cool. I mean, you got a lot of incredible options here. I'm starting all 3 of those running backs. Achane, Montgomery, and Charbonnet are your 2 running backs and your flex. As for your wide receivers, I'm going AJ Brown and Shakir there very comfortably. Thank you. Mohammed in the chat says pick 2, Breece Hall versus Jacksonville, James Cook versus Detroit, or Ladd McConkey versus Tampa. If it's a full PPR, I will happily play Breece Hall alongside of Ladd McConkey. If it's a half PPR, I'd have to reevaluate, but I think I'm still going to lean towards those 2 as of right now. But again, I'll have to reevaluate once I get everything settled in terms of rankings for Sundays, the live stream between 7 to 10 a.m. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see here. Ibrahim in the chat. Ibrahim, thank you. Let's see where your question is, my man. Ibrahim says, Debo made me look bad, LOL. For week 16, is Bills defense versus Pats defense. Bills defense versus the Pats good? Yes, absolutely. I would say that the Bills defense in week 16 and 17 are must-starts. And at a top 5 capacity, considering they play New England in week 16 and the Jets in week 17. And it says, or do I keep the Cardinals? Nope, you would make the swap immediately right now. Also, Ertz versus Philly or Andrews versus the Steelers or Muth versus the Ravens. I would go Ertz 1, Andrews 2, Muth 3, most likely, if it was my team at this point. Thank you. Vin Jacob sends in a question, says, appreciate you. Made it to week 1. Made it to week 1? You mean 15, right? Full PPR flex, Jalen Warren, Amari Cooper, or Jaden Reed. That goose egg, though, LOL. Yeah, of those 3 options in a full PPR, I would play Amari Cooper there. If I wanted to save 10 points, I would go for Jalen Warren, but I truly do believe that Amari Cooper is within the realm of possibility coming off of a 14-target game to where he can get, 5 catches, 50 yards, and be just as capable, if not have higher upside in the potential of him scoring a touchdown within this upcoming matchup. So Amari Cooper is my play there. As for your tight ends, Laporta or Tucker Kraft, I would go with Kraft confidently. Thank you very much, Vin. Appreciate it. We had God's Gang sends in a question, says, Jennings killed me. Purdy played like trash. I mean, I don't know if anybody played well in that game outside of, Puka Nacua and, Kyron Williams, really, ultimately. The defenses were locked in. The weather was locked in, and everybody just suffered because of it. I mean, Matthew Stafford started the first half, 2 for 11 passing, okay? Let's just put that into perspective. So it wasn't just the 49ers that were struggling. Everybody struggled yesterday, which was rough. Benny G, what's up? Says, good day, mate. Andrew says, full PPR, super flex question. I have Jalen Hurts, Rico Dowdle, Mixon, Evans, Bowers, Chuba, Jones, and Anthony Richardson in play. Ladd McConkey and Johnny Smith on the bench. Correct lineup. In a full PPR, I would, if it's my team, I'd probably play Ladd McConkey in the super flex over Anthony Richardson. I don't think I take the risk there. I just take the solid points that I'm going to get, with Ladd McConkey in the lineup, assuming he's active, of course. But that's the way that I would go about it. Thank you. All right. Najee Henderson says with a question. Thank you, Najee. Says in a half PPR, we need 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Of the following, we have T. Higgins, JSN, Judy, JT, and Charbonnet. Cool. Your flex, 100% without a doubt in my mind, is Zach Charbonnet against Green Bay. Again, in the absence of Kenneth Walker, should be a fantastic play like he has been all season long. Again, in the last 3 games in which he has played without Kenneth Walker active, 15 points, 21 points, 35 points. Like, what more can we ask? He's only getting better in the absence of Kenneth Walker. Now, as for your 2 wide receiver starts, Judy has a lot of weather implicated there. JT wouldn't start because you don't have an alternative option there. So it's T. Higgins and JSN who would start over Judy as your wide receivers. Thank you. We had Anonymous sends in a question. Anonymous, where art thou question? No, nothing got attached here. Anonymous. Once you type that in, I will go ahead and happily answer it. Luke C sends in a question. Says, question 1, PPR, rank the following: Travis Homer or Darrington Evans if Swift and Roschon are out. Again, we won't know until tomorrow because, again, Swift doesn't play until Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. NFL Week 15. Do they not have a Monday game, or am I mistaken? And that's the other. No, they have a Monday game. There's 2 Monday games this week, guys. One starting at 5 p.m. PST, the other one starting at 5:30 p.m. PST. Why is that the case? I have no clue. The NFL doesn't know how to schedule games, nor do they know how to schedule bye weeks. Anyway, so in this circumstance, in the event in which, for example, we had both Swift and Roschon out, I'd rather have Travis Homer. I would. Because he would be more implicated within the passing game, which I would expect to be more of the approach for this offense going into a Minnesota matchup. And then your next question was Vele, Dobbs, Elijah Moore, or Smart in the flex. Of those available, I would rather have Romeo Dobbs as the best available option there. And then it says Evan Ingram out, and it says Evan Ingram out. Cool, yeah. Flex 2. Oh no, that was the first question. Okay, yeah. Never mind. So Travis Homer would be the preferred over Darrington Evans. But if I was going to play one of these players, it would be Romeo Dobbs. As for your second question, Evan Ingram out. It says TN or Indianapolis defense week 17. Would I rather play? I would still rather play Indianapolis' defense week 17. Thank you. Soul Train sends in a question. Thank you, Soul. Soul says in a PPR, Love, Baker, or Richardson. Thanks. Yeah, I'd much rather play Baker over the bunch. The order in which I would go about it. I mean, look, I could justify playing Richardson there, but it is the sketchiest of the group. It truly is. Again, there's a lot of high upside and there's a lot of potential for downside. So for right now, I'm just going to take Baker Mayfield in an exciting matchup there against that Los Angeles secondary that has struggled as of late. All right, Anonymous sent in his question. Says in a half PPR 14-team league, we have 2 flex options. Okay. So my team consists of Mahomes, Kyron, Gus, AJB, DJ Moore, Mooney, BTJ, Otten, Washington's defense. Downs, Dobbs, Ferguson, Corum, Casey's defense. Drop any of 4 Spears to play over Gus. Also, who for my 2 flex spots and tight end? Thanks, bro. Okay, so so Pollard's going to play this weekend. So don't expect to be making a move to where you're picking up Tyjae Spears to play over Gus Edwards. I would still rather play Gus Edwards because Pollard is most likely going to be active. In the event in which somehow, some way he is inactive, if I was going to drop someone, I'd be dropping Blake Corum to ensure that I make this move. Or I would drop Kansas City's defense, which would be the preferred because you're not going to utilize them for the rest of the season. Now, as for who we're flexing as the 2 options, I mean, again, you have Cade Otton and Ferguson at tight end. Again, they're both relatively close. I would play Cade Otton there. As for the 2 flex options, you currently have it set as Mooney and BTJ. I would not. Actually, I technically would change it. I'd play Downs and BTJ. That's the way I go about it, Anonymous. Thank you. All right, we had a question that was sent in from Josh Holt. Josh, thank you very much. Let me see if I can find your question in the chat. Josh Holt says, hello, sir. Thank you for the awesome content as usual. Thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate that. Just wanted to say hello. You're the man. But I'll throw the question if I must. Okay, very well. Green Bay, Seattle, or Chargers defense this week? Let me see where I have them ranked. Green Bay, Seattle, Los Angeles. If I was going to play one of these defenses, I'd play the Green Bay Packers defense of the group. That's the way that I'd go about it. Thank you. Appreciate it, Josh. Appreciate the kind words. Telugu sends in a question. Telugu, thank you. Says Jacobs, Mixon, JT, Brees, Brian Robinson, pick 3. Cool. Of those available options, I'm playing Jacobs, Mixon, and Brian Robinson. Thank you. We had a question from Catacomb Kid who says questions in the chat. Thank you, Catacomb. Let's see here. Catacomb, I don't see your question in the live. Never mind. I do. It just was sent in. It says, set my lineup in a half PPR. We have okay, let me just go ahead and copy paste your lineup into a notepad, and then I will effectively try to set it for you here. So Josh Allen's your quarterback. You know what to do with that. That's easy, okay? Wide receivers, you have Terry McLaurin, Amon-Ra, okay? Let's see. These are your running backs. That's your tight end. That would be your effective flex. Okay, and then these will be your bench options. So Njoku's probably going to miss. Brees Hall back kills Braylon Allen's value. Jalen Waddle could theoretically be played, which is probably what I would end up doing. So yeah, this is the way that I'd go about it. Considering the risk of playing Bucky Irving, okay? Let's say, for example, he plays and once again leaves early with an injury. What I would suggest that you do here, as it currently stands, Catacomb Kid will be playing Josh Allen at quarterback, Amon-Ra and McLaurin as your wide receivers, Tyron Tracy, Rashad White as your running backs, and then considering, again, there's so much risk inherently there, I'm going to play Waddle as your flex. Keep Hunter Henry there, keep your kicker, keep your defense, you're good to go. Thank you. We move on to a question that comes in from Emily Doyle. Emily, thank you very much. Says, so I'm an idiot and didn't have Kamara in lineup. I had Cook and Rashad White, Jennings in the flex. So who should I? Oh, geez. Okay, so that's rough. So you would be benching James Cook in order to, yeah, that's the way I would go about it. I would rather have Rashad White, even with Bucky Irving playing, alongside of Kamara as your two starting running backs going into this weekend's matchups. Thank you, Emily. Serge sends in a question. Thank you, Serge. Says, one running back and one flex. Tyron Tracy, Marvin Harrison, Ramondre Stevenson, full PPR. Cool. If I was going to play two of these options, I'd play Tyron Tracy alongside of Ramondre. Thank you. Sammy sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I'm currently, currently I clinched fantasy playoffs with 11-3 record. Appreciate all the helpful recommendations. No problem. In the past few weeks. Says, but here's my question. Should I go with Josh Allen or Jared Goff in a full PPR? Okay, so 11-3, you don't have a first round bye. That is unfortunate, Sammy. But going into today, really, there's not even a question here. That's just more of a, it's Josh Allen. 10 times out of 10. I don't know if there would ever be a week in which I would ever suggest Jared Goff over Josh Allen. Maybe the only time they would take place is if Josh Allen's on a bye week. And even then, I would consider playing him just to give my team some morale boost. But yeah, you know the answer. It's automatically playing Josh Allen. He's a legendary quarterback for fantasy purposes and has the highest of upsides and is the correct play as for this week. Thank you. Akshay sends in a question. Akshay, thank you very much. Let me see if I can find it in the live chat. All right, Akshay. Maybe you typed it in recently? No. Actually, there's only just the super chat you sent in, nothing attached to it. So if you could do me a favor and type it in the live chat, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Peyton Whitaker, what's up? Says Green Bay. Says Ben or Jets defense. Okay. Also Warren. Okay, so between those, when you say Ben, okay, what the heck is Ben defense? You mean Den, right? Like, is in Denver? I'm going to assume you mean Denver. Okay, so if it's Green Bay, Denver, or Jets defense, as of this week, the way that I currently have it set up, I have the Jets 1, I have Denver 2, and then I would have Green Bay 3. That's the order in which I would go about it. And then your follow-up question is Warren over Gus. I would still play, yes, I would play Warren over Gus, especially in a full PPR, but I would still do so in a half PPR. Thank you, Peyton. Luke C says, in a full PPR flex, rank the following: Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Elijah Moore, Devontae Smith. Cool. If I was going to rank them going into this week, the way in which I would go about it, Devontae Smith 1, Romeo Doubs 2, Christian Watson 3, Elijah Moore 4. Thank you. God's Gang sends in a follow-up, says, I need a flex with upside. Judy, London, Neighbors, Hall, Pacheco. I'm playing London there. I do not like the idea of the weather with Judy. Neighbors with DeVito does not seem appealing. Pacheco and his overall workload as of late been a little bit rough. The weather does imply more of a rushing priority in that game, which could be something that could help Pacheco this week. Hall, obviously coming off of his injury, has a fantastic matchup. We just don't know how much he's going to play. So for right now, I'm leaning towards London there, God's Gang. Thank you. Ibrahim sends in a follow-up. Ibrahim says, Week 16, half PPR, pick 1, Ertz versus Philly, Ferguson versus the Bucks, or Henry versus the Bills. As of right now, I would go with Ertz versus Philly. In the event in which, let's say, for example, Ferguson comes away with a 10-catch game on Sunday, it could potentially sway my thought process as to how I want to approach Ferguson going forward. So if there's a performance that tilts the scales, I'm still going to, it could happen, but for right now, I would go with Ertz. Thank you. All right, we took care of that. Appreciate you again, Ibrahim. Joel Garza sends in a question, says, thinking ahead, I got 2 questions. I need the ship, bro. Listen, I can only help as much as I can. Your players have to then just step up, right? Like, I can only do so much when guys like Cooper Kupp are disappearing on a Thursday, afternoon. Anyway, it says, so what defense do you want to play for rest of season fantasy playoffs? And second question, do I play Lamar Jackson against the Steelers or Jordan Love? In the event, okay, so next week, Lamar Jackson versus Steelers or Jordan Love versus the Saints. Okay, so this is a difficult one. You're putting me on the spot here. I would assume that Lamar Jackson plays significantly better than what he had produced last time out against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I would play Lamar Jackson on my team under the assumption those are my two choices for week 16. Again, that's looking forward, but still I would. Again, I think it's, if you have Lamar on your team, I don't think there's a justifiable position of any matchup in which you would ever bench him. I honestly do not see one. Unless they're bringing out the steel curtain, something of that exchange to where you have a legendary defense out there, which again does not exist as it currently stands in Pittsburgh. So yeah, Lamar would play. Now, as for your prior question, which defense do I want to play for rest of fantasy playoffs? I mean, if I had to pick one, I don't think there is technically one defense that I would play every single week henceforth. I would have to hop back and forth with different defenses. Now, you could theoretically just take, for example, the Eagles, because they've been a great defense all season long, and just let them ride for the remainder of the year. You could do something of that exchange. But again, it leaves you exposed to potential mistakes in which, again, if they don't show up to play on a certain week, you're cooked because of a given matchup. But as we progress, look, it's not easy because I would say Denver is something that you can play blindly. I think Pittsburgh, theoretically, but again, as of late, maybe not so. There are some defenses that you can just play blindly. I would say Denver, maybe Minnesota are the two that, as of right now, going forward, you can play blindly. Eagles could be another one of them. Otherwise, I'd like to play Buffalo, 16 and 17. Thank you. Daniel Hong sends in a question. Says, I had Puka play yesterday, and I have one wide receiver, 2 running backs, and 1 flex left to play. All right, sounds good, Daniel. Let's see what you have here. Says, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Higgins, Kamara, Aaron Jones, and Charbonnet. Okay, you got really good options here. So, of the incredible options you have available to you, the way that I would go about this is I'm playing Charbonnet and Aaron Jones as your running backs. As your remaining wide receiver, I am playing Amon-Ra St. Brown. And in your flex position, I'm playing A.J. Brown. That's the way that I would go about it, Daniel. Thank you. All right, after that question, we had Chronified, who sends in a question. Chronified, long time no see. Hope you're doing well. Says, sup, Andrew? 2-6 to 7-7. I'm in the playoffs this week, looking for an upset. Yeah, 2-6 to 7-7 is some legendary shit, though. Let me tell you. Okay, let's see here. What do you have? Says, help me set my lineup. Start 7 in a full PPR in a 0.3 per rushing attempt. Wow. Okay, interesting. So we have Darnold, Knicks. Have to play Darnold there. Running backs, we have Breece Hall, Chase Brown. Okay. Wide receivers, Puka and JSN. And my 2 flex between the available options, Thielen. We have Tyron Tracy Jr., Connor, and Wanda Robinson. Cool. If I was going to start 2 of your flex options, I would go about playing Thielen and Connor this week. That's the way that I'd go about it. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Scrolling down, we had a question from God's Gang as a follow-up. Says, really appreciate your work ethic. No problem. Listen, I'm only here because you guys are. If you guys weren't here, I wouldn't be here, right? So I greatly appreciate you guys. I'm willing to put in as much effort as I possibly can in order to help you guys succeed for fantasy purposes. Because again, I'm going to put in this kind of effort anyway to make sure that my leagues win. So I'm just going to share whatever I do on a weekly basis, and let's hope that, the fantasy gods are blessing us as they typically have over the course of the last couple of years here. All right, let's see here. Continuing on, we had a follow-up from Peyton who said, I was meaning Bengals defense. I see. So when you put Ben, you meant Bengals. I understand now. The Bengals defense have had, 8 points in the last 2 games each, which is not terrible. But again, as it currently stands, where do I have them ranked? I have the Bengals as my... Okay, so this is the way that I have it. The Jets are my number 3 defense on the week. The Bengals are my number 9 defense on the week. Green Bay is my number 12 of the available. So, yeah, I would still prefer the Jets in that circumstance. Thank you. And I appreciate the clarification. Now that I know, we're good to go there, Peyton. Appreciate it. The S-Box sends in a question. Says, in the toilet bowl, okay, so you're trying not to get last place. It says, I need to win one, okay, to set free of the punishment. Which 2 do I start in the flex? Full PPR, Dobbs, Coleman. Oh, there you go. My YouTube crashed. Let me just close the links so it doesn't bug it anymore. There we go. You have Dobbs, Coleman, Devontae Smith, or Calvin Austin. Of those available options, it's probably Devontae Smith 1, Dobbs 2, Austin 3, Coleman 4. That's the way that I would go about it. So those are the 2 that I would start, Dobbs and Smith. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Mando Jr. 97 says, Cook or McCormick? I would rather play James Cook. Next question, Schultz or Kincaid? I'd probably rather play Schultz at that point. And then Akshay sends in a question. Thank you again, Mando Jr. Akshay sends in a follow-up, says start 2 in a PPR, JSN, DK, Neighbors, Waddle, need upside for Cup. Okay, got it. If we're looking for ultimate upside, I would go with, as of right now, I just go with JSN and I would go with Waddle. That's the upside, in my opinion. Thank you. Peyton Whitaker says also, why Warren over Gus? Yeah, the issue that I have with Gus Edwards is purely he is just going to only benefit if he scores a touchdown. In the absence of a touchdown, he is not going to be implicated for a lot of kind of, quite frankly, yardage upside. Over the course of the last couple weeks, he's been okay in terms of his efficiency numbers, but in comparison to what J.K. Dobbins was presenting within the offense as a whole, he's just really just a lesser option. No receiving utilization, less rushing attempts, all of that within the overall equation, especially against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a passing funnel. I would expect this offense to continue to lean upon absolutely throwing the ball, which again, less implication for Gus Edwards to be involved. While on the other end of this matchup, we have the Eagles taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers with no Pickens. Again, maybe more offensive struggles, potentially more passing downs within the game in a negative game script will lean in the direction of Warren getting more exposure to opportunity within the reception game in a full PPR, certainly in my opinion being the better option of the two. Thank you. We had a question that was sent in from Luke C. Luke, thank you. Says, why so low on Elijah Moore? The primary reason is because of the weather. Again, it's going to 100% be a downpour in Cleveland this upcoming Sunday. I don't know if Jameis Winston will be able to sustain it. Now, we look back to that snow game in which he was able to still dice up a little bit in that second half. But again, it's not going to be a consistent volume of opportunity going in his direction because the weather will be playing such a huge factor within the upcoming contest. Thank you. Joseph Weintraub with a very generous super chat. Thank you very much, Joseph. That's far too kind of you. Again, guys, for further purposes and future notices, that is far too kind. Again, I really do appreciate it. All right, says, big fan all year. Purdy screwed me. Yeah, that's, to say the least, Purdy screwed you, brother. To start, in a 14-team half PPR, Wilson, Neighbors, Smith. We have Smith and Jigba. Okay, we have Gibbs, we have Bucky, we have Ferguson. Upside running backs and bench, Vidal, Kendre Miller. We have George Pickens, obviously out. Looking for more upside thoughts. Appreciate it. Okay, so if we're going to go, how do we go about this? If we're looking for ultimate upside, in terms of wide receivers, I'm going with Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba. As for running backs, Gibbs. I mean, if Bucky Irving plays, you in a 14-team league, you don't really have an alternative option. So you have to play him and just hope that he falls into the end zone. And then as for your flex position, geez, I mean, at this point, you kind of have to throw in Neighbors there. Yeah, look, the unfortunate nature of your situation, Joseph, is that you have no real pivoting positions because, quite frankly, you don't have that many options. With Pickens being out with injury, and your bench consisting of Kendre Miller and Vidal, which I don't really see them either getting very much so implicated within the overall attack of their offenses. As it currently stands, I would probably just stick with what you have. The best options are Wilson, Neighbors, Smith and Jigba, Gibbs, Bucky, and Ferguson. That's the way that I'd go about it if it was my team. Because again, playing Vidal and Kendre Miller with still Gus Edwards and Kamara active, just again, there's very little shares of opportunity and very slim chances that they score touchdowns. Even though Kendre did fall into the end zone last week and didn't have himself, 10 rushing attempts, I don't expect that to be a commonality within their offensive approach, especially when they're down 20 plus against the Commanders. Thank you, Joseph, again, for a very generous super chat. Mike Robinson sends in a question, says full PPR. One running back, one flex between Cook, Pacheco, Tracy Jr., Evans, BTJ, thanks. Okay, so of those available options in a full PPR scoring format, I think as of right now, it depends, right? James Cook obviously did, burn us pretty badly last week. So between him and Pacheco, I could justify playing Pacheco there. If the weather is going to be a terrible situation, you would expect more of a running approach. But it's not like the Cleveland Browns are a sloppy run-stop defense either. They're pretty solid in that category. So I'd play James Cook as of right now as your running back. And then, well, actually, you know what? You're playing in a full PPR. Scratch it. Let's just play Tracy. Let's just go for the upside. Let's go for the guy that's going to get a bunch of receptions. Yeah, I'd play Tyrone Tracy there as RB. And let's play Evans in your flex. Thank you very much, Mike Robinson. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. Shajan, or Shone, I don't even know how you would pronounce that, says, in chat, thanks for all the help this year. Apologies for butchering your name. Maybe I can, you know what, let's look it up on Google. Let's see, how do we pronounce this name? Just so I can, maybe it is just Sean. Maybe it is Sean. Let's see, pronunciation. How do we pronounce this name? Let's see if Google wants to help your boy out real quick so I can actually learn a thing or two here. Google, you want to open up this website, please? Yeah, it's just Sean. Sean with a J is probably one of the... Sean with a J. Brother, of all my time, that is one of the most interesting spellings. But hey, It's unique. I will tell you that much. It says in the chat, thanks for all the help. Okay, Sean, let's see what you have here, brother. All right, Sean says the following. Hey, Andrew, last year I let slip my fantasy source you to my father and he won. Made me mad. This year I'm seeking vengeance. I got the first round bye with 2,100 plus points plus Pittsburgh bringing home number 7. Yeah, I mean, geez. Okay. Yeah, Sean, I get it. No, I got it. Now, listen, I had to do some research. I figured out how to spell your name. We're good. I mean, or pronounce your name. Spell. No, but now I understand that it's spelled that way. Okay, anyway. Sean, I do appreciate you slipping it out. And even though you did lose your fantasy league last year, hey, listen, at least it was kept within the family. At least your father won instead of, somebody else. But anyway, if you want to go ahead and share your team, I'm more than happy to check it out. But yeah, I mean, obviously it looks like first round bye, you're good to go for the fantasy playoffs. I mean, the only thing you'd probably be preparing for is most likely just defense for week 16, maybe even a kicker, depending on weather situation. Mando Jr., 97, sends in a follow-up, says flex, 1 point per reception, Coleman, Dobbs, Adunze, McCormick. Of those available options in a full PPR scoring format, I think it's probably, I'd go Dobbs 1, I'd go McCormick 2, Adunze 3, and Coleman 4. That's the way that I would go about it. Thank you. We had a follow-up question, or another question from JT, says, questions in the chat. Thank you. No problem. JT, let's see what you have here, brother. JT, where art thou? JT, you're going to have to retype your question in the live chat. I don't see it in the live chat. Not sure if you... Yeah, I don't see it. Thank you. When you get a chance, just type that out. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. Cap sends in a question in the live chat. Says, half PPR. Do I start Jonathan Taylor or James Cook? I'd rather play Jonathan Taylor. Schnabel says, knocked out of playoffs. I'm just here because of my withdrawals. Yeah. Oh my God. He retracted the statement immediately. Okay, Schnabel. I saw that, though. Work for what you want, says I'm still salty. I have cup. Yeah, listen, brother, you and a million other people. You're not alone. Trust me. I sit here in front of you humbly as a Cooper Cup manager that is probably going to lose that league just purely off of the fact that I wasn't able to get a first round bye. It is unfortunate, but it is the reality of the situation. It says Quentin Johnston or Cooper if McConkey is out. In the event in which McConkey would be out, I think I'd play Josh Palmer over both of them. Thank you. Hunter Smith in the chat says, I lost Evan Ingram and Njoku in a PPR. Smart, Komet, Noah Gray, or Calcaterra. I'd pick up and play Stone Smart. Thank you. Marvin Harrison Jr. or Breece Hall. I'd rather have Breece Hall in my lineup. VMS. Let's see here. Lou in the chat says, Drew, help. Donald is my quarterback. I need help. Use Cup, max upside. Pick 3 between Tyreek Hill, Sutton, Garrett Wilson, and Addison. Cool. If I was setting your lineup for ultimate upside, I'm playing Tyreek Hill, Cortland Sutton, and Jordan Addison. I'm benching Garrett Wilson. Thank you. Joseph Mai sends in a question. Joseph says, PPR, I started Kyron and Cup. Need to choose a running back, wide receiver, and a flex out of Neighbors, BTJ Pollard, JT Connor, and AJB. Cool. I think it's very simple. The wide receiver is AJB. The running back is Connor. And the flex is Jonathan Taylor. And that's how we get our ultimate upside. If Njoku doesn't play, should I choose Henry, Ertz? Yeah, between those two, I would play Zach Ertz. And then he says, I have Daniels at quarterback. Yeah, good to go. Yeah, Ertz would be the suggestion there at tight end between those 4. Thank you. Sean says, my team is Jaden Daniels, Kamara, Gibbs, Higgins, Nakua, McBride, Charbonnet, Terry McLaurin, Pickens, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen, Jake Bates, Cardinals defense, and a 10-team full PPR. I mean, you got a really strong team to say the least. I think obviously your biggest... You've got too many running backs. I think it could be a good thing and it can also be a bad thing at the same time, Sean. Mainly because, again, you have Kamara, Gibbs, Charbonnet, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving. And only 3 of them can start every week. And going forward, as long as Charbonnet is in the mix, he has to start. So really, I mean, I'm not changing anything with this lineup, especially going into next week. But I would assume that Charbonnet is probably not going to be available to start next week. Most likely we get Kenneth Walker back into the mix. Even when that takes place, again, you have Higgins, Nakua, and McLaurin. Again, I think getting the first round bye in your situation here, Sean, kind of benefits you because then you'll get a full healthy Bucky Irving back hopefully next week. A better matchup for Jonathan Taylor as well. You're going to be in a pretty good spot this time next week for sure. again, the only issue is going to be like Jaden Daniels. Can he step up and perform against the Eagles in comparison to what he did earlier this season? Now, I will say that earlier this season's matchup against the Eagles didn't show up primarily because it was a Thursday game, as we have experienced all season long. There have been very few really solid Thursday games as a whole for fantasy purposes. The only one that I can truly remember that was a fantastic, solid performance for all parties was Baltimore versus, what's it called? Baltimore versus Cincinnati. That was like the last one I remember. Outside of that, very few and far between. Thank you. Let's see here. Alex in the chat says, I lost Njoku. I picked up Juwan Johnson. I don't know if I should switch him for Stone or Atkins. I watched Hidden Gems. Okay, so I would say that Atkins is probably not a startable option considering the weather in Cleveland. He could end up scoring within the red zone if they get down to that point. But between Juwan Johnson and Stone, I would say conventional wisdom would tell us to play Juwan Johnson considering the efforts at which he is put forth as the primary receiving option of that offense, considering it's very much so tight end centric. Would I play Stone over him? No, I probably wouldn't. I'd still play Juwan Johnson there. As long as Juwan Johnson, there's no health concerns or anything like that, I'm perfectly fine rolling him over the alternative options there. Alex, thank you. Headshop sends in a question, says holding Kansas City, kick right, keep holding / weather. Holding Kansas City's defense. Okay, I understand what you're saying now. Okay. As of right now, as for right, yeah, look, I'm not playing any Kansas City kickers this week if the weather's going to be a disaster. And the expectation is that probably next week, Harrison Butker will be returning from the injured reserve. Not sure if I'm playing Matthew Wright this week, though, considering the situation. So you can hold Kansas City's defense for the weather itself, but Matthew Wright probably needs to be replaced as of right now. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Subdo sends in a question. Another one from him. Let's see here. It says in a 10-team PPR, we have Jalen Hurts, JD5. Okay, so are we setting this lineup? It says 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex. Cool. So if I'm setting your lineup as for this week, I'm playing Jaden Daniels. I am playing at running back, Brian Robinson alongside of Charbonnet. At wide receiver, I'm playing Amon-Ra St. Brown alongside of DJ Moore. Within the flex position, which you have one of, I would in fact play, it's a PPR. I probably end up playing Tracy as your flex. Minnesota or Washington defense, I would play Washington's defense there, and that's the way that I'd go about it. Thank you. Okay, we caught up there. Good to go. Soul Miracle sends in a question, says, lineup thoughts. We have Goff or Stroud. I'm not interested in playing Stroud ever. I mean, again, the issue with Stroud primarily is just lack of consistency, ultimately. As of late, I mean, again, there have been times where he can show up and show out. Ultimately, even in an I don't even know if it's technically an advantageous matchup, but even in a matchup as such that he should be implicated for throwing the ball a bunch, really, he's just not been the Stroud of old. So I'm not going to act like he is, especially for the fantasy playoffs. It's the same kind of treatment we have to give someone like Debo, to where it's like, okay, they haven't played well as of late. All of a sudden, they're not just going to wake up. Okay, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Or however it goes. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I'm an idiot. I'm not trying to get caught up with a Stroud play within the fantasy playoffs. I'll just go with Goff there. As for your running backs, you have Jacobs, Tracy. Okay, pretty good to go. Wide receivers are JJ and Nico. Kelsey at tight end. Should I flex Mooney, Bigsby, Justice Hill, Johnston, or McCormick? Of those available options, if it's a full PPR, I'm flexing Mooney. If it's a half PPR, I'm flexing McCormick. Thank you. Lockscreen Gaming sends in a question. Lockscreen says, sadly, Jennings messed me over, in a PPR. Daniels, Brian Robinson Jr., Gibbs, Sutton, Chase, Ertz, Jennings, Fairbairn. Cardinals defense bench consists of Pacheco, Hall, Harrison Jr., Judy, Jets defense, top waiver, tight end, Kraft, Henry, Ferguson. Okay, so Daniels, Brian Robinson, Gibbs. I mean, you have a really solid lineup. I mean, the only thing that I would theoretically change is picking up Tucker Kraft and playing him over Zach Ertz. But considering you have the Daniels Ertz stack, you can leave it as such if you would like. But Tucker Kraft is technically higher ranked within my overall rankings. Otherwise, I'm not making any changes to your starting lineup. You're good to go there, my man. Thank you, Lockscreen. JT says, question is in the chat now. Okay, JT, let me check that out right now. All right, JT says, I have a bye week, but want to prepare for next week. Should I grab Winston to start over to Love? No, I would much rather play Love against the Packers. And then it says, also, should I grab the Packers defense to start next week as well? Yes, I would start both their defense and their quarterback next week against the Saints. Thank you. All right, scrolling down, we had a question from King Alec, who says, in a full PPR, if McConkey is out, Devontae Smith, Quentin Johnston, or Palmer, I would play Palmer above all of them. Thank you. Again, Palmer would immediately fill into what McConkey's role is, which is primarily slot receiving option. Luke C sends in a question, says PPR flex, Travis Homer, Watson, Bucky, Vele, Palmer, if no Lad McConkey. Okay, so in the event in which there was no Lad McConkey, I would legitimately play Palmer there. Otherwise, it probably ends up being Bucky Irving. Thank you. Let's see here. In Your Cheek sends in a question, says pick 2 in a full PPR, Devontae Smith, Amari Cooper, Isaiah Davis, or Palmer. So you would only play Palmer if Lad McConkey is out. So let's say, for example, Lad McConkey is not out and Breece Hall does end up playing on Sunday. You have to play Cooper and Devontae Smith. Thank you. All right, so let's see here. Take care of that. Appreciate it. Janelle in the chat says, I need one for the flex, full PPR. Flowers, Judy, Neighbors, BTJ. Of those available, I would probably play BTJ. Thank you. Constantino, what's up? Says, I'm a huge underdog this week in a PPR. I have Thielen, Marvin Harrison, D-Hop, Sincere, and Devontae Smith. Who would you go for upside? I'd go with Thielen there. Thank you. Especially in a PPR. Scott sends in a question. Says, good evening, Andrew. Playing Barkley Jacobs, AJ Brown, and Nico. Flex is Charbonnet. Very well. St. Brown, Montgomery, and Jonnu, question mark. Of the available options you have, technically, based on what you have, that is the correct lineup, Scott. Absolutely. That's the way that I would go about it as well. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Tom Fool in the chat says ETN or McCormick in a PPR. I think to be safe, let's just play McCormick as of right now. That offense for the Jaguars is a little bit sketchy to have anybody but Brian Robinson or Brian Thomas Jr. Starting for. Pedro in the chat says, would you drop Debo for a defense for next week? If you don't ever plan on playing Debo for the remainder of the season, then yes. But that would be the only time that you're dropping him because, again, I mean, there's always the possibility that someone in your league, picks him up and plays him. But, I mean, you kind of would want them to do that. It's kind of like a trap option, right? Tony Lopez says, how high does Judy rise up the rankings in a full PPR with no Njoku and Tillman? He does not move up the rankings. In fact, he moves down, primarily because it's not a matter of the absence of Njoku and Tillman that can dictate his value. It's the matter of the weather. And as of this week, the weather concerns for the Cleveland game in Cleveland outdoors is very much so in a threatening matter to the extent to where I would almost desire not to play any receiving options of that offense. Again, we will re-establish this conversation once again on Sunday morning around 8 to 9 a.m. PST, in which we will take a live look in Cleveland. I know there are many members of the community over the last couple of years who are local residents in the Cleveland area that will keep me updated on the matter via Twitter. And once that ends up happening on Sunday morning, again, we'll get a full establishment as to how we want to approach Judy's situation. If it's clear skies and there's no weather concern, dude, Judy will be a top 10 receiver this week. But considering what the weather is most likely going to anticipate to be looking like, I would look towards another alternative option in this scenario. Alex sends in a follow-up, says, thank you. Last one, DK or Thielen? I'd rather play Thielen this week. Thank you. We sent in, we had a question from Aaron who says, Strange or Stone this week? I'd rather play Stone. I had to decide that earlier today when I was talking about hidden gems. I kind of went back and forth. I was like, you know what? I'd rather just play the tight end that has a solid matchup against Tampa Bay rather than one that has a little bit more of a difficult matchup against the Jets. All right, let's see here. Anala sends in a question. Says, I have Otten. Should I pick up Ertz or Schultz? Yes, I would pick up Ertz and I would play him over Otten immediately. Thank you. Roy Powell sends in a question, says questions in the chat. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Control F. Let's see where Roy P is at. Roy Powell says, started Kupp and Jennings. I have Achane, Gibbs, Reek, and Hurts. Do you still think I need upside? Tight end for Njoku, Schultz, likely, Smart. Who's the play? Okay, so Kupp and Jennings. If you started them both, theoretically, you lost out on, let's say, for example, you played in a half PPR. Theoretically speaking, you lost out on 30 potential points. I would have assumed that both of them were capable, or at least I had them projected to be 15-point plus players, okay? They both put up a total of, 4 fantasy points in a half PPR? So you're definitely out on 26 points. You're going to need a lot of potential upside, and you're going to need the rest of your options to effectively score multiple touchdowns. Achane, Gibbs, Reek, Jalen Hurts, all of them minimum have to score 1 touchdown. And there's going to have to be efforts from like Tyreek Hill and Achane to maybe perhaps even score 2 touchdowns in a high-scoring event there against Houston's defense. Now, if that doesn't take place, you have to get this tight end position correct. The issue is between the bunch. If Njoku does end up missing this week, which is most likely going to be the case, even if he does end up playing, there's nothing that says that he can't re-aggravate the hamstring injury and leave midway through. Schultz, likely, Smart. If I was going to pick the player with the highest upside, I truly still do believe that it is Isaiah Likely because of the volume of touchdowns the Ravens are implicated to score within the upcoming matchup. Otherwise, I would probably just play Stone Smart. Thank you. Appreciate it, Roy. After Roy's question, we have John War, who says, full PPR, 1 flex, Dowdle, Najee, Marvin Harrison, or Tracy. I play Dowdle there 10 times out of 10. Thank you. All right. Isra sends in a question. Thank you very much. Says, started Purdy, Jennings, Garendo. Projected to lose by 30 now. Sit 2 with at least, with the least upside. Jeez, man, this is rough. I mean, what a terrible, again, when I was sitting there watching the game and it was halftime and the score was what it was, I sat there and I was like, this is going to be one of the worst week 15s that we've seen in a while. Now, again, this time last week, we were talking about the same thing because, again, this time last week, the Detroit Lions took on the Green Bay Packers. Tim Patrick scored 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs had the offensive touchdowns all for the Packers offense. So many of us who had Jayden Reed or Amon-Ra were struggling. But then there were some, breakout performances late in the week with some superhero efforts that ended up saving us. So hopefully this is going to be the case for you. Now, as for your available options, you have Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Charbonnet, McLaurin, Pacheco. If I had to sit 2 of these 5 players that I believe have the least amount of upside, I'm sitting Garrett Wilson and Pacheco. I am playing Tyreek Hill, Charbonnet, and McLaurin. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question from A-Rod. BX84 says, full PPR Superflex. Would you start Ritter over Stroud? No, I would play Stroud over Ritter. Thank you. Josh Holt sends in a follow-up question. Josh, thank you very much. Let me see where your question's at, my man. Josh says, Stroud was my man going into the season. So was Debo. Finally swallowed my pride and benched them both this week. Both weeks ago. Tua and BTJ have saved me in the recent weeks due to your advice. Thanks again. Look, I thought Stroud was going to be great too. I truly did. What did I have him ranked? In the preseason, I think I had him as my quarterback 6, maybe 5, maybe 7. I don't know. Anthony Richardson was up there too. Let's not get it twisted. There's many of guys that just They weren't able to pull it out this year. And I don't know what the deal is with Stroud, but he definitely has taken some steps back as a quarterback. Obviously, the offensive line shambles, that has been the case. Even the last year, there was a lot of injuries within the offensive line, especially the interior of that offensive line. This year, it has not been something they can mask with his efforts, unfortunately. Bringing in Mixon has certainly helped, but outside of the running game, this passing game is just in shambles. Yeah, and Tua has definitely been incredible in the last 4 weeks. He is just, for me personally as well, I didn't think that in one of my more important leagues that my 2 starting quarterbacks that I've gone back and forth on the last couple of weeks would be, funny enough, Sam Darnold and Tua Tagovailoa. I didn't think that those would be my championship effort quarterbacks, and they have been just exactly that. But again, look, that's the thing, right? You know how every year in the preseason we talk about, okay, listen, you can draft a quarterback like Josh Allen because he has the potential of being a top 4 quarterback. And based on averages over the course of the history of fantasy football, if you draft a quarterback that is going to be in that conversation to potentially be QB1 by the end of the year, there is a positional advantage based on fantasy points with the drop-off within the interpositional kind of ranking that justifies an early selection of a quarterback. Otherwise, shoot, if you waited on drafting a quarterback this year, Sam Darnold, Tua Tagovailoa after the concussion, Baker Mayfield have been saviors for so many of us. It's been ridiculous. Anyway, sorry, that was preseason talk. My ADHD brain just was running. It was running. Okay, let's see here. Let's see here. We took care of Josh Holt again. Thank you. Joseph Mai had a follow-up. Says, are we worried about Washington's defense versus New Orleans being a blowout and Daniels doesn't get as many points? No, I'm not worried about it. Again, this most recent game in which Jaden Daniels played against the Tennessee Titans was a blowout, one-sided affair. He still balled out. He still scored, 4 touchdowns. So I'm not worried about the situation at all. K Dizzy 415 says half PPR start to Shakir, Waddle, McConkey, and Downs. Cool. Of those available options in a half PPR, I would say that the smartest two plays would be McConkey and Shakir. Even though I want to play Waddle over Shakir, I don't know if I'll get myself to do so. So for right now, McConkey, Shakir, Waddle, Downs. That's the order in which I would rank them. Thank you. Corey Miller sends in a question, says Kittle scored one more point than my opponent's kicker. Yeah, I know that's rough. That is rough, brother. Says, so not off to the best start. Anyways, New York Jets defense or Arizona's defense this week. I would rather play the New York Jets defense. Again, that offense for the Jaguars doesn't have very many options available to them to help them move the ball. And of course, Mac Jones is an interception machine. He has been that way over the course of the last two seasons, 2023 and 2024. If I'm not mistaken, Mac Jones has just as many interceptions as games started in his last 15 games. Pretty rough. Cavalry says, Patreon, I need help. Okay, let's hear. Let me go over to the Patreon, see what message you ended up sending me. Cavalry, thank you. Let's open this up. Let's see what you have here, brother. All right, Cavalry says, okay. You sent this to me a couple days ago and I didn't even see it, huh? Huh. It wasn't, maybe I clicked on it and then I closed my tab. All right, that's my bad, Cavalry. All right, let's see what you have here, brother. So it says 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense. Okay, so of the available options, you have Love, Nix. Okay, so between those two, I would prefer to play Jordan Love. Next question, it says, let's see, you have, okay, It says, might be cooked. I started Purdy, okay, and Jennings. I don't even blame you. I had them ranked higher. Says, I have Mike Evans and Thielen benched for Amon-Ra and Sutton. Okay, I would agree with that. Also running Bijan and Charbonnet. I have McCormick and Pacheco. Any of those better options? No, I would say that currently, as the way that you have it set with Amon-Ra, Sutton, Bijan and Charbonnet is the correct approach. As for your tight end, you play Hawkinson. As for a potential flex option there, if you do have a flex option, it could end up being Mike Evans or Thielen, depending on what your scoring format is. If we're talking about a half PPR, it probably ends up being Evans there pretty comfortably. And then you end up just rolling with trying to pick up the best defense for this week. If Baltimore is still available, I think that's probably the best plan of action there, Cavalry. Thank you. Luke C sends in a question. Thank you, Luke. Says, question 1, Minnesota or Atlanta's defense? I'd rather play... would I rather play Minnesota? Let's see, where do I have them ranked? Minnesota's there. Yeah, I have Minnesota as my number 7 defense on the week. Atlanta as my number 8. They are both in the same tier, but I still do have Minnesota projected higher. As for your next question, Ferguson or Juwan Johnson? I'd rather play Ferguson. Thank you. Alex, thank you very much. A-Rod says, what about Tank Dell? Should I pair him up with Stroud or go with Watson? I would much rather play Tank Dell, honestly. I'd play Tank Dell over Watson this week. Thank you. Vita says, Mahomes or Jordan Love? I'd rather play Jordan Love. I don't love the weather in that Chiefs versus Cleveland game in Cleveland. Sean says, I grabbed Jaden Daniels off of the waivers. That is crazy. But in a 10-team league, it actually makes a lot of sense. Shahir says DK raised in ranking with Jair Alexander ruled out. Yeah, but it's ever so slightly. Again, the issue with DK Metcalf is a lack of opportunity share. Obviously, him being healthy this week certainly helps, but it's really just going to be a matter of considering he's only getting 6-7 targets a game, maybe 8 if we're lucky. He's going to have to score a touchdown. Otherwise, we are cooked. Pedro in the chat says, Breece Hall, Sincere, Rashad White, and Downs. I need 2 running backs and 1 flex. Thoughts on a PPR? Thanks, man. No problem, Pedro. Let's see here. Of your available options, I would end up sitting Sincere, and I'd play all 3 other options. I'd play Hall, White, and Downs. Thank you. Alan sends in a question, says, how do you assess the Bears' backfield? I mean, look, again, they don't play until Monday, so we're going to have to wait and see what the practice report kind of pans out tomorrow for DeAndre Swift. But in the event in which DeAndre Swift is active, I don't expect him to do much. Again, unless he scores a breakout rushing touchdown of 30-plus yards or gets himself a lot of receiving utilization, he's not going to be highly implicated with a lot of opportunity within the upcoming negative game script. Now, in the event in which he was to miss alongside of Roschon Johnson, I would play Travis Homer because purely we only are going to benefit from the fact that they're going to be throwing the ball most likely 40 times in the upcoming matchup against Minnesota, very similar to the last time out. So in this upcoming matchup, considering, again, target opportunity is really going to be the only separating factor with less of a rushing kind of dependency in a negative game script. You kind of have to go with Travis Homer because, again, he is the primary receiving back of the available in the event in which DeAndre Swift would be out. Brian Greenwood in the chat says, half PPR DK Metcalf for Sincere McCormick. I think it'd probably be safer to get 10 points with McCormick. I think it's very safe to get 10 points with him. As for DK Metcalf, in a half PPR, to get 10 points, we need what, like 6 catches for 70 yards? Definitely possible. Not out of the realm of possibility. As for touchdown upside for both of the two, I would say that Sincere McCormick has a higher likelihood, most likely, which kind of is crazy to think that this is where we've gotten to with DK. Charlene, what's up? Says, hey, Andrew, thanks. Now that my season's over, Cup gave me a flat 0. Yeah, that's rough, my man. That is a rough way to end it. E111 says, that being said, Mahomes or Mayfield? Yeah, I'm going to play Mayfield there. Again, I don't like the idea with the weather, with Mahomes' situation. I don't like the idea that this offense has just been a field goal machine as of late. Let's see here. Janelle says, sit one in a full PPR, Higgins, CD, Sutton. Higgins, CD, Sutton. If I'm sitting one of those three, I'm sitting CD Lamb. Also, mix in Jacobs and flexing Connor. Thoughts? Yeah, that's the correct way I would go about it as well, Janelle. Thank you. The Doe says, set my lineup, please. Says, I have Love, Winston. Okay, I would rather play Jordan Love. Don't like the weather in the Cleveland game for Winston. It says, I have Hall, Kamara, Pacheco. Cool, we're going to play Hall and Kamara there. DK Mooney, JSN, Keon Coleman, Higgins. Cool, we're going to play Higgins alongside of JSN. And then if I'm going to play one of these options as your flex, it probably ends up being Pacheco in a standard league. Thank you. Alrighty, how long have we been here for? About an hour and 10 minutes? Okay, I think that's where we're going to end it. We're going to probably answer a couple more questions here, and then we'll call it. I'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. PST to continue answering questions. Again, I'll be back Sunday morning at 7 a.m. PST answering even more questions for 3 consecutive hours prior to the Sunday slate of games. Again, do not forget, we live stream every single day on the channel. For those of you who are new in the live chat, make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all that kind of jazz and the daily content. Earlier today, again, we did post our hidden gems of the week. I had a couple entries for Underdog there as well for those of you interested in potentially tailing. Again, yesterday's play completely cooked me. I was able to put in another entry that saved me at the end of the first half, but it's only because, I got extremely lucky. Otherwise, your boy was cooked. What does it say? Judy or Porter Jr.? I would still rather play Judy than Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. That's not the right one. You mean Michael Pittman Jr., not Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. plays for the Denver Nuggets, not Broncos. Jeez, my brain. Joseph, no problem. Thank you. Charlene says Fairbairn was the waiver wire. Yeah, Fairbairn has been incredible. I mean, look, Fairbairn I had really highly ranked within my offseason rankings, mainly because if you go back to 2023, on a point per game basis for fantasy purposes, he was the best kicker. So I already knew he was going to be awesome. Matt says you didn't mention JD5 as those late quarterbacks. He's been my MVP this season. You know why I didn't mention him as a late quarterback? Because I didn't draft Jaden Daniels late. I drafted him very early when given the chance. Like, I knew Jaden Daniels would be good. There's a reason why I have a thumbnail this offseason of him, and the video's name is like must draft sleepers. And it's Jaden Daniels on the front cover of it because I knew he was going to be solid. The history of success from, Heisman winning quarterbacks, it's storied. They typically always ball out their rookie year. Joey Porter Jr. for Pittsburgh, cornerback. Yeah, but what does that matter? He said Judy or Porter Jr. for half PPR. That's not a... He's talking about Michael Pittman Jr. He's not talking about the cornerback because the quarterback's not playing in fantasy. Jocelyn says Montgomery, Hall, Jonnu, pick one. I'm playing Montgomery there. And if I'm going to play another alternative option, if it's a full PPR, I'll take Jonnu. Otherwise, if it's a half standard, I'll take Hall. Ando with the final question of the night says week 16-17, Bates or McLaughlin? I'm playing Bates every game rest of the season. If the weather's an impact, then we can change it. Bradley says with weather conditions for D-Hop, flex D-Hop, Sincere, Ford, or Pop Douglas. I'd play Sincere there as of this week. Charlene says, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Nick L says Juwan Johnson, Noah Gray, or Stone Smart as an alternative for Njoku. I would lean towards Juwan Johnson as it currently stands. Okay, guys, I appreciate y'all. That's what we're going to call it. I'm going to cue the music. Have a great rest of your night. I'll be back tomorrow, 1 p.m. PST. If you guys have any questions, I'll be here to answer them. Outside of that, we're queuing the wonderful Double Helix. And until next time, I hope you have a good one. See you guys. Peace. All right, pausing the music for a quick second here. We had L. Kevin who sent in a question. L. Kevin, you came in at the last second. I am here. I will not leave you hanging. If you can hear me, put a thumbs up in the chat so that I know that you can hear this response. As soon as I see the thumbs up, I will happily answer your question. What do we have here? Pitts, Kincaid, Mayer, Likely, or Schultz? Okay, so this is all risk and potentially no reward. Okay, potentially, because the tight ends you have mentioned here, Kevin, Pitts, Kincaid, Mayer, Likely, Schultz. I mean, brother, we're really scraping at the bottom of the barrel now. Considering this situation, okay, I would probably suggest playing Kyle Pitts there. To be totally honest, playing against the Raiders, that defense cannot stop the tight end position to save their life. Last week, Pitts did get 6 targets. Could have had a touchdown if, Kirk Cousins wasn't blitzed on that play, but they did bring the house. Kirk Cousins put it on the wrong shoulder and evidently threw an interception. Otherwise, it would have been a Pitts touchdown. So, as of right now, I'm going to probably play Pitts there. I do not trust Kincaid coming off of the injury. Mayer, again, it's a 1-week wonder until I see multiple weeks of that kind of levels of consistency. Not going to buy in on it. Likely is 100% touchdown dependent. And Schultz, I don't know if I'd ever play Schultz in a full PPR, half PPR, unless I really had to. So yeah, I'm going to lean towards Kyle Pitts there. Much love, guys. Hopefully you heard this, L. Kevin. Says, I'm leaning Pitts too. Thank you, brother. No problem, man. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Peace. Okay, I'm still here, by the way. I'm still here. I will happily answer any question. Let's limit it to 5, okay? The next 5 questions. If you are still here in the live chat and you have a question in regards to fantasy or even non-fantasy, I will answer it at will. I do see some questions like Toe Jams earlier said White or Downs in a half PPR. I think I'm still playing. I'm still going to play Rachaad White there. Even if Bucky ends up playing, I'd still play him. Touchdowns are there. Christine, if you have a question, I think you typed in one earlier. I don't know if I got to it though. Let's see here. The man of the people. Listen, man, I just love fantasy so much. The only reason you guys are here is because you love fantasy so much. So why not answer all these questions, right? Listen, I'd be here all day, every day answering questions if I could. Physically, I'd get worn down and completely fall apart, but that's my voice would be lost within one stream. Charbonnet or Hubbard? I'd rather play Charbonnet there. Thomas, thank you. Landon Day says Pacheco or Stevenson? I'd rather play Stevenson there. Downs or Moore? I'd rather play DJ Moore. Can you rank these players? If I were ranking all 4 of them, it depends on scoring format though. No questions for you? Answered last time. I'm just chilling. All right, cool. Thank you. Flame, what's up? says I need 2 in a PPR out of Lamb, Addison, Charbonnet, and Rashad. Okay, so here's the deal. The way that I would legitimately go about this is if we're in, oh man, holy moly. Okay. So Charbonnet has to play. In the event in which Bucky Irving is inactive, you would play Charbonnet and Rashad White. In the event in which Bucky Irving is active, then you would have to just play Charbonnet alongside of Lamb. I would not mind you playing Addison over Lamb, but there is an inherent risk involved with it to where, again, if you're not willing to bite the risk, you just roll with Sharbs and Lamb. Thank you. Cavalry says, am I cooked? Cavalry, I don't know if, well, you know what? I'm going to be honest. Anytime you have a 4-point quarterback, you're probably fried. I'm not going to cookie, yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Let's just, you're fried, brother. Don Sylvester, what's up? Says Pacheco or Amari Cooper? Depends on format. If we're talking like half PPR, at that point, I just play Pacheco and hope for the touchdown. Talking about full PPR, I just go with Amari. Tom Fool says Atlanta defense or Cincinnati defense. Currently, I have Atlanta 1 spot ahead of the Bengals defense, but they're back-to-back ranked in my rankings. You'll see that on Sunday morning. Constantino says, we're all cooked, Cavalry? Yes, brother, we are all cooked. Fried egg. Classic. Okay, I appreciate y'all. That'll be it. Have a great rest of your Friday night. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace. Bowers or Ertz? You think you have to play Bowers, right? If you have Bowers on your team, you have to play him. I thought I was leaving, by the way, and then 2 messages came in. Bandy, what's up? Says Charbonnet, James Conner, HN, and Brian Robinson. Full PPR, who sits? How many can I play? Because the order at which I would rank them, I'm going Charbonnet. In a full PPR, I would actually, yes, in a full PPR, I'd play Charbonnet 1, HN 2, James Conner 3, Brian Robinson 4. That's the way that I'd go about it. Woozy Medicine says Hopkins or Williams. I'd rather play Jameson Williams. And Ertz or Ferguson, I'd rather play Ertz. Okay, I have to call it somewhere. That's it. Thank you. Have a great night, guys. Peace.